Hello, we are two blacks and a Mexican. I'm Chris.
I'm Tawny.
I'm Miles.
So, as everyone knows, Chadwick Boseman passed away recently, and it hit us all really hard. We were part of like a group text where the three of us kind of just talk about movies and what we have, what we want to do next, what we want to talk about next. Some things we'll never talk about on the show, just having fun. And as we've sort of been unpacking our own thoughts around losing someone who was so special, we decided we wanted to do an episode about the movie that most people know him for, and one of the movies that we really love. And so this is one of our favorite movies, but it's not racist. We decided that. We just want to talk about it. And so we're going to spend this week talking about Black Panther. This is a movie by Marvel Studios, our first Marvel movie that we've talked about. It came out in 2018 and stars Chadwick Boseman, Lupita Nyong'o, Michael B. Jordan. Was directed by Ryan Coogler and was a really special movie in the Marvel canon. And we'll get to why it's so special soon. But I think we want to start off just talking about Black Panther as a film. And so when y'all reflect on Black Panther, what are some things that y'all really that really make you love that movie?
So I'm gonna talk about something that I'm gonna guess that was not at the top of either of your lists, which is the fashion, the costume design. I can't think of a movie in recent memory that every single time I watch it, I notice some new detail about the way the fashion not only just exists and is fabulous and spectacular, but also highlights some different element of like what it means to be human. And that sounds like grandiose maybe, but like I watched Black Panther probably like, I don't know, maybe 12 times this weekend. Just kind of on repeat. And the scene, where they show all the tribes and they're, T'Challa's about to be sort of officially selected and they're all sort of doing the roll call. And it's just like every single group has its aesthetic. And you can see that it's all part of a grander aesthetic, like a bigger picture of what it means to be African. And you can see that there's a continuous note, but everything, like every single group has its own thing. And there's just something that's so special about the costume design, the artistic design. I think Ruth Carter is her name. And the beauty and the way that Afrofuturism, which I'm sure we'll talk about like as this episode goes on, is represented in this film in such a beautiful way and in mainstream American culture. And it's just like, ugh.
So my thing was fashion. No, I'm just playing.
Stop it,
But,
Miles.
no, like I was telling Chris, like when this movie came out, I think I saw it in theaters like 5 times. I think like it was like excessive. Like when and we talked about like how this is not like a perfect film, but it just makes you feel good. Specifically if you're black, I would obviously, but for me, like watching this film, like there's this thing like growing up, like I grew up like half and half. Like I grew up in like I'm from like the east side of Detroit, like the poorest side of Detroit. Then I moved to Chicago, lived in like some super white suburbs. Then I lived in like the city, which if you're from Chicago, you know what the city means. Like,
Yeah.
but I've kind of lived on both sides of the spectrum as far as being pretty poor and being okay. And I think like growing up like as a black kid and being in a predominantly white neighborhood, it wasn't cool to be like it was cool to be black. Like the black kid is always like assumed to be the cool kid or whatever. or at least when I
No,
was growing up,
that's
like that's
yeah,
how it
that's
was.
That
insane.
Like,
totally, I totally. You don't even have to explain. Like, if anyone
yeah,
tries to pretend that you're like that's some simplification, no, that's accurate.
yeah, it's like they would look to me for the slang, for the cool shit, like, oh, you know all the rap songs. It's like, okay, like that's sort of your role, like
Hmm.
being in that environment. But the thing that's not cool is being associated with Africa as a uh like the remember, like, I don't know if you remember the growing up, just the African booty scratcher thing was like a
I remember
huge,
that.
that was like always a
Yeah.
tease. Like the kids that there would like be like one or two kids that would be like maybe Nigerian or something you grow up with, and they would get it bad because it was uncool to be from
Mm,
Africa and to be extremely dark and to look and to have those African traits that, us in America, black people in America, we don't all have that uh, uh, that lineage where we're like directly from Africa. We're mixed with a ton of different things, so we look a little bit different than they look, but you can obviously tell we're the same. That, like, this movie made that the coolest shit ever,
Hmm.
is being from Africa, which is something that growing up, like, you feel self-conscious about being in a room full of like just white kids and you're the only black person there. When they start talking about American history or Africa or slavery, it's embarrassing. Like, you don't want to have that discussion, and you don't feel, there's a sense of pride that's not there,
Yeah.
like as a kid. And this movie, I feel like, made Africa be like, you saw it all over the place. Like, people were, obviously wearing the costumes and stuff from the movie, but I saw so many people just wearing African garb, like, to the movie itself, where I've never seen that before, because in our community it's not really, up until this point, it wasn't really that cool to wear. Because if you did, you were just a conscious brother, like
Yeah.
wearing the kufis with the, like,
The
you
kente
was on
cloth.
some,
Yeah.
like, yeah, the cloth and stuff. Like, you were just a conscious dude, like trying to wear. Now it's like, no, that's not the stigma. Like, this movie made it cool to not only be black but just be African in general. But
Yeah.
great movie.
No, I mean, yeah, amen to all that. Yeah, I mean, for me, like the story is so was so unexpected for me to see in a Marvel superhero movie, to be talking about the African diaspora and to be talking about like the pain of being connected to a place that is so deeply important to the entirety of human civilization, but to also feel so disconnected from it, and for it to also be like a negative label, and trying to, like, there's so many layers to the story in itself that make this a special film. Like, it's hard to find films about that, let alone superhero films, you know what I mean? And I think the other thing that I really want to call attention to is the score. The score to this, the
Yes,
score to Black
amazing.
Panther is the best score in Marvel, period. Like, full stop. I never remember the only score I remember that I sort of, because I remember movie scores, and none of the standalone Marvel movie scores do I really remember. Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like a soundtrack basically, but
Mm.
scores, I remember the Avengers main theme that kind of rings in my
That's, I mean,
head.
that score is
The
amazing with the
Silvestri,
main
yeah,
Avengers thing.
yeah, the
That shit is
Silvestri theme
incredible.
for the
Yeah,
main Avengers is amazing. But as far as
yeah.
standalone films, I never remember that stuff except for Black Panther, and that, that Wakanda arrival theme, the music that plays when Okoye is wrecking shop with that spear in the club.
That scene, I
Um,
Love
rewound it and
that.
watched it like
Yes.
3 times in a row the other day because I
yeah,
was like,
Yeah.
it's so fucking good.
yeah.
And it's just that beat, you know,
Ludwig,
Love it.
what's his
perfect.
name? Ludwig Göransson. That dude is,
Gorson,
he's
yeah.
like becoming the
Amazing.
new, yeah. He's because he's I think he did Tenet now too, and he's doing like more and more films. But he did the score for Creed as well, and Creed had a dope score. I think he works with Ryan Coogler a lot, and yeah,
He
that.
also did Redbone too, for Childish Gambino.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
man.
He did a lot
really?
of, yeah, he did a lot of stuff on that album. He's I'll send you guys a video
Yeah,
later. Like that dude
he's
is
fire. Yeah.
ridiculously
He
talented.
did the
Yeah,
Mandalorian score too, which is the first time that Star Wars
yeah,
had new music that sounded good to me. um, dude is killed, and so the score is just so iconic to me. Like the scene when Killmonger takes the throne, and they just got that beat. Like it's just so
super
like
hard.
it
Yeah,
adds so much. Yeah, it adds so many layers. It's that perfect mix of hip hop and then an actual kind of orchestral score. Um, but then like,
yeah,
which is a perfect mix for a movie that is sort of this bridging of cultural identities.
yeah. Two worlds. It's like
Yeah,
it blends what we created here as Black people in America and what our ancestors created, and it's like, yeah, this is what you guys were separate, but this is what you guys contributed to your culture that you both
it's
share,
so good.
and it's
Yeah.
like that's so fire.
And I like when I try to explain, and I don't know, even know why I'm still trying to explain this to people, but like when people are like, just because of the color of your skin, and I'm like, wait a minute, let's just, racism is not literally about skin color. And as soon as we can talk about that honestly, well, just because of the color of my skin, no, that's actually not what it is. Can we talk about coding and like cultural coding? And it's this thing of like, but here's the thing is like, I don't really buy it when people pretend that they don't get it.
Hmm.
And to see black culture so gloriously coded, um, in a way that like somehow still worked in the mainstream, it was just a feat. Like there was, uh, and I think that was one of the, because I think it did it come out in 2018.
Yeah,
Like it
2018.
was one of the first movies because I lost all of my movie collection in the divorce. I had to buy everything again
Oh my gosh.
because I
Man, that's
yeah
a
I lost
terrible thing to lose in the
I
divorce.
lost everything because it was all on Amazon, and it was his account,
Got you.
and so I've had to rebuild my collection from scratch. And one of the very
Like,
first
man, let me
movies
get that
I
login, man. Come
bought.
on now. I know, it's
No, he changed
it's
the
over.
password like pretty much right away. Because and most of those movies were mine. They were movies he didn't
Petty.
even watch.
Petty.
But
That's
like
petty right
one
there.
of the
Yeah.
one of the first movies I bought was Black Panther, and I remember being like, "Kids, sit down. We're watching this." Like, but just I can't even.
Yeah.
Like, just I can't even, and I'm not, and I'm trying to put myself at the epicenter, but man, that movie means a lot to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think yeah, as a film, like, and I'll take a brief moment to sort of talk about the things that its shortcomings, only because I think its shortcomings speak more to what the culture around the film became. Um, the biggest thing that we've talked about, or that I've talked to people about, that Black Panther is lacking is the the CGI heft that Marvel movies tend to have. In the third act, a lot of the CGI elements don't really work. And I didn't learn until recently that part of the reason for that was that some of the animators and VFX artists that were working on Black Panther were pulled over to work on Infinity War, which was the next Marvel movie that was coming out. And understandably so, that's the big one, right? But Infinity War, Black Panther ended up being one of the biggest movies of all time, not Marvel movies as far as box office goes. And so it's kind of funny to think that Marvel didn't fully have like faith in that film being as big as it was, because they were like, yeah, let's get to the big movie. Like, I mean, and so part of the reason why, because in my head I'm like, why is the CGI in this towards the end not very good, when Marvel movies have literally created whole characters out of CGI that walk around and feel like you could touch them, like Thanos, right? Um, and to learn that, like, oh, it's because the resources weren't the same. It's like, of course they weren't. And I try not to hold that against Marvel, because you got a movie that's the biggest movie you've ever done. Of course you're going to pour your resources into it. But it's kind of interesting to think, like, the one thing that people sort of knocked that movie on is something that was kind of stripped away from it midstream. Um, and I mean, there's other things obviously you could sort of poke at, but when we talk about a movie that's so well acted, where the supporting cast is just as valuable as the main character, one of the best casts, maybe the best cast in all of the Marvel movies.
So many like badass women. Like that's such a striking. And again, I watched it a bunch of times, and I was just like, his whole fucking support is women. Like his mom, his
This whole
sister,
squad.
the Dora Milaje, Nakia. Like it's all women. And it's that's fucking awesome.
I feel like there's like specific scenes in this movie where the acting is incredible, and it's a lot of it is by the women to me in the movie. Like Okoye is my favorite character in the movie. Period. Like hands down over Black Panther. That's my favorite character in the movie, hands down. Like she is a force in the movie to me, and I mean she's just a phenomenal actress
Right.
anyway.
Right.
Um, Deny it. But yeah, like that was one of the things that I forgot to mention was like just the the level of female empowerment like in this movie is head and shoulders above anything what they tried to do with Captain Marvel and with other things. Like this doesn't feel like they're trying to pander at all to like, because I feel like there's times where they maybe do a lot to try to cover a quota of saying, well, here you go, girls, here's your movie
Mhm.
or here's your character. I don't feel like that was done here at all. I feel like these characters are significant to him. He can't do what he does without them.
And there's something of a like there's something of an existential urgency to their interactions with each other and the way they interact in the world that I think very much is an echo of what black women face like in just in their in life, like in daily life. There's like this, I was just thinking of the scene where Okoye is like all fucking torn up because Killmonger's just defeated T'Challa, and she's like, I'm loyal to the throne, and you can see that like she's fucking upset about it, and
Yeah.
I love
and
that scene.
eventually, obviously, it changes, but it's just like you can feel it, and god damn it, what gorgeous casting, like perfect.
Just that scene, like with the performance between those two in that scene is incredible. I mean, there's quite a few scenes where I feel like the women steal the show for me in this movie. I feel like they're the highlight, and the way that it's shot, it almost feels like an ensemble. Like it's called Black Panther, but a lot of the pieces around him are incredible. And to me, I know everybody made a big deal about like Killmonger and everything, which I honestly personally feel like is the weakest performance. um but I like his character, and I don't think he gave a bad performance. I'm just, in comparison to what I feel like Denai and Lupita is doing like in that movie, like I think their performances like uh, outshine like a lot of the male performances in my opinion. Like uh, just like that was, I think that when I walked away from the movie, I just was like, man, like the acting is never this good in these movies to me. Like I don't ever feel, and obviously maybe there's some biasness because it's about my people low key like, but like I just feel like the performances were like powerful, like in scenes where I was like, man, this is like a emotional scene. Like it's actually emotional.
I think there's something to say for like when a movie really means something that's like beyond just like heroes are great and you should
Yeah,
be good to people. Like this was a movie that took this is a movie with political strains in it, and it like in terms of politics, I think this one like just there was more emotional fodder, and the actors really could bring that like this thing of like I believe in this thing um to the role, two roles more than if you're just, playing um Star Lord thrusting his hips to
Right.
come and get your love.
a lot of the Marvel movies are, we have to save the world, and who the hell has to save the world on a daily basis? Nobody.
Right.
Like it's fun to watch and it's extremely entertaining, this movie dives into some like heavier social problems that specifically black people can identify with in America. Like, yeah, this is what America refuses to acknowledge,
Hmm.
and you're talking about it in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cool,
Yeah.
okay, great. And there's so many times where, again, like a lot of other Marvel movies, great movies, I love them. They're not talking about like I suppose some of them are like hitting on some serious things. Like
Yeah.
I guess if you really like wanted to pick through, like even with Thanos and like
Yeah.
just
It's there.
population control and
Yeah. But
genocide,
those are the
it's
best
just like
ones. Those are the best ones. Even
it,
if Black Panther
yeah,
is better, those are the
yeah.
ones like Winter Soldier tapping into national security, Thanos tapping into like what it means to be to deal with a world too big. Like those are the best Marvel movies, and there's a reason. It's because they're not your typical "I got powers now and I have a responsibility to save the day." Like that. That's overdone. Like T'Challa, like that. The story in Black Panther is so
It's like, what is
um,
right? Like, what is right? Like, what is
exactly
the right thing?
because the armed uprising is what
And
Killmonger was talking about, and that's something that plenty of Black folk want to happen. So,
It's
like,
something that's happening right now, low key. Like, and not
yeah,
even low key. There's literally like a race war, like bubbling up right now in our country. And there's like Black America is even divided on that. There's that Martin and Malcolm sort of ideology of, well, maybe we should just find a more diplomatic way of dealing with this. And then the other side of us that I think that we could all even empathize with as Black people, the hurt side is like, man, let's just kill all of them. Let's just get rid of them. And that's not the answer. But I empathize with the pain of, well, I'm hurt, so you hit me, so I hit you back, type of thing. And that's like,
well, also just like never being able to trust somebody. Like, how do you trust somebody who's fucked you over for 500 years? Like how is that ever like how do you repair that? And especially when one side doesn't seem like it's interested in treating you better. Like it makes
and that's why
sense.
like Killmonger, his state of mind is so relatable because like you said, he's kind of not wrong. Because if we're looking at how we got to this state in the first place, it took a lot of killing and a lot of colonization and a lot of other evil things for us to even get to this point. And all I'm saying is, well, let's just go help these people that need help. And that might involve some violence, but I think this is fair. This is fair, right? This is fair.
what I love about Killmonger in this movie, and I get what you're saying about the performance but I think there's a layer to that performance that, if read differently, to me makes it stronger, which I sort of read into the last time I watched it, which is he's a wounded boy, he's a wounded child,
Hmm.
and like I feel like that's because there's an immaturity to the way that he talks that kind
It's
of
like
Hmm.
overcompensating.
in comparison to the other characters feels a little bit like Scrappy Doo in a way. You know what I mean? Like he's got this like kind of almost cartoonishness to the way that he delivers these things, but he's trying to like he was hurt, and that scene with his father is such a great scene because it's like
Hmm.
you see the pain of his father being like, man, I feel like I failed you, um when in reality, like so many people failed him, and like to be left behind and to be seeking that out and to literally kill your way to what you hope to be um your promised land is man, that's crazy. But
That's a good
it
point. That
yeah, I mean, on the flip side though, T'Challa's arc is so like one thing, like because one of the other I guess we can start to shift into the character of T'Challa and Chadwick's performance, because one of the things people say is that he's overshadowed in this movie. Um, it's hard to play the an interesting lead in a superhero movie. I've decided that because most of the time, the hero character's moral compass is very strong, and so like usually like the most interesting in arcs in the movies, in any movie, is someone who has to learn something, become a better person. Well, superheroes start off inherently good usually and are just trying to get their
Hmm.
body to catch up with their heart and mind.
Mm.
And so like, Superman's good. He never is not good. He just has to figure out how to beat the bad guy with his good. And I think what's interesting, T'Challa is inherently good, and so his arc isn't massive. But it's, to me, what makes it interesting is it's more of a change in ideology than it is a change in like his character, so to speak. Because I think everything that he does is in line with who his character
Hmm.
starts and ends as. But him being able to understand that his father did something wrong and that that just doesn't align with what it means to be good. And then him sort of calling his father to task on it and then doing the right thing. It's such a cool arc, but it also requires
Absolutely.
less, like there's less of a shift in how he shows up. And so
Yeah.
I think like what I find interesting about his performance, Chadwick's performance as T'Challa, is like he's so subdued that when he has that moment with his father, it really, like, it's stuck, it stays in my head. You're
Yeah.
all wrong, you're all wrong, like that moment. And then to see like that smile he has at the end when he meets that little boy, um is just so like, it's such a perfect arc going all the way back to Civil War, where he just was in so much pain, and at the end of it he's able to smile again. I don't know, that like, I know it's more subtle, but to me it takes a good actor to be able to pull that off and not have it be like kind of lame.
No, that is a good point, and even your point to uh, Killmonger, like his performance, like um, that's a good. Like I know so many people that are that way that grew up in some of the worst circumstances, like where they have to overcompensate in order. And I feel like a lot of males go through that. I went through that at 18, where I wanted to fight everybody. I don't even
Yeah.
know why I wanted to fight everybody. And I remember I was in the military, and I remember one of my superiors, like, I did something I can't remember, and he's like, you always got this attitude, and you always want to be treated like a man, but you're going about it the wrong way. You think that being a man means that you try everybody and that you have to show everybody that you're not to be messed with, or show everybody that you're tough, or whatever the case is. And that's not really what a man is. That's what a boy thinks a man is. And like, because that's what we emulate. It's like when you put a kid behind the 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 steering wheel and you let them pretend like they drive,
Yeah.
they start doing all this crazy shit. Yeah, they just start turning because that's what they think driving is, from a kid's perspective. And that's the same
Mhm.
thing a boy is looking at older males, and especially if they're looking at men that have like toxic masculinity, or men that are like very mannish and very like the traditional idea of what you would think a man is. They see that and they replicate that as to what they think a man is supposed to be. So that kind of makes, I guess that makes his performance even more, I guess, maybe believable as Killmonger, because I know people like that where they're overcompensating for something else, for the lack of fatherly, a worldly father that they had a relationship with. So they look to other things to, show them how to be, quote unquote, a man. So it is like trying to be overly tough. Like, you work out a lot to beef yourself up, so to defend yourself from things, so nobody sees past the boy in you, right? Like you put up all these barriers and all these protectors to like save yourself from whatever situations that you come across.
Not to just say that like Killmonger is not interesting. Killmonger is a foil of T'Challa in a lot of ways. Like he's, and I think the sadness of T'Challa and when he lashes out at his father isn't like, I think it's because he sees that, like he sees what Killmonger could have been had he been nurtured and had support and resources. And there's like, and he holds him, like he holds him, and he's the last
Hmm.
person that sees him before he dies. And there's no malice, there's no like, there's no lording anything over. It's just pure empathy and compassion. I'm sorry, I'm getting upset. Like, but it's like pure empathy and compassion for like what you could have been had you had what I had. And I think in when we're
Yeah.
talking about like the subdued nature of Chadwick Boseman's performance, like I was talking to my mom, and she's just like, "There's something about him. I don't." She's like, "I don't know what it is. He just makes you feel calm, and it's just this like he's the eye of the storm. He's the calm, and all the chaos that's happening around
Yeah.
him. And there's something
Yeah.
beautiful and prescient in Chadwick Boseman's performance of that character. It's perfect. Like that's exactly what Black Panther needed to be for this story, for this narrative of trying to bring those two storylines together. Of here's this completely untouched, uncolonialized, beautiful, perfect haven of blackness. And then here's this poor, damaged soul that had to exist in a society that only ever saw him as flawed and lacking in some way. And and it was like Black Panther's role in that story to make sense of that. And man, I mean, God, what soul for a superhero movie.
I mean, yeah, like that connection, that the whole movie doesn't work if that if he doesn't carry that believability, as he's both royal and approachable. He's both um, superhero and like mourning his father. Like there's so many layers he had to carry going into that movie, and he seems to do it with ease. And like that, the I was reading. I don't know if y'all read what Michael B. Jordan wrote about him. Michael B. Jordan wrote a thing on his Instagram about Chadwick Boseman, and I didn't realize this, but I guess they were both on All My Children when they both when Michael B. Jordan was like 16,
Oh, really?
and
Yeah.
that's when they first met. He said I was like 16, 17 when I met him, and he said even like then, like he looked up to him. He said he's looked up to him throughout his whole ever since then. He's kind of like they've been knowing each other that whole time, and it's so it puts a whole new layer to me on the film itself to like think about that these guys have this relationship in real life of sort of big and little brother, and in the
Mhm.
end he is that to him. Like there's no animosity from Killmonger directly towards T'Challa. There never was.
He lets it show at the end. Like you see
Yeah.
his vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
it's almost like you and like your cousin that like everybody has like I won't say everybody, but like you'll have like that aunt that has that did well for herself or uncle or something that has money, and you go to your cousin's house and your cousin got all these toys, he got everything, he's got the bikes and everything, and that's what that is the sort of resentment for the cousin that just has it a little bit better than you, and like I feel like that, and I mean that's literally what it is. It's like my cousin, when I go over his house, he got everything. He got his own room. I gotta share a room with my sister, and it's uncomfortable and we don't have that much space when we go back. My dad ain't here. Like like it's all these things. You got your family, you got your sister, you got all this stuff, and it's like when he gets there, I don't think it's necessarily he doesn't hate T'Challa, but there is this sort of resentment where it's like I'm mad because not at you, but I'm mad that why did you get all of this and I didn't? Like I could have had this too. Like I should have had this too. Literally, he should have. Like
And why didn't you
because
help us?
he's in the same family. Yeah,
Hmm.
why didn't you help us? And that's the thing that I was listening to this interview a couple days ago. They was talking about that, and that's kind of like the the sentiment of not all of Black America, some of us don't care. I think about that too. Like it made me like ponder that same question. Like yeah, why y'all ain't come back for us? Like, I mean, not to say that, you're responsible for every single, but yeah, kind of, like, a little bit. Like, you do feel like, I don't feel like any, I don't even, and that's the other thing, is that I don't even know specifically where my family is from. Probably West Africa. I don't like, more than likely.
Yeah.
But I don't know specifically exactly. I couldn't pinpoint where my family is from, but it's like, yeah, well, you do kind of start to think, well, like, well, yeah, well, what happened? Like, because if you're black, the sort of, I guess you could call it spiritual. I don't know what the connection is, but
Hmm.
there is some sort of connection between black people. I don't know what it is. Maybe
Hmm.
everybody, maybe every human has that. I don't know. I just know there's this thing when I see another black man in public where we
Yeah.
acknowledge each other. I
Yeah.
don't know why. Nobody ever told me to do that. Nobody ever said that that was the rule. We just do it. I don't even know why we do that, but there's just something in us that we have to acknowledge each other. So it does go back to why you didn't come back. Yeah.
Right, and however different your life experiences are from other black people you meet, you have the experience of being black in America. Just like, and like, that's that, what's that famous like book or something, like, why do all the black kids sit together in the cafeteria or something like that? There's like a book or an essay. But it's like, it's the idea of ethnic enclaves. Like, you want to feel like your fucking life means something. And so you sort of want to be around people who will acknowledge that. And let's be honest, like, mainstream American culture hasn't always acknowledged that my life means something. And it certainly hasn't always acknowledged that your life means something. And so like, we when you see somebody that looks like you and who shares that experience of being a second class American, like, you fucking, like, there's like a magnetism. Like, I went to fucking a white ass school, and I never went there being like, I'm only talking to the other brown people. But it's like, you're drawn to each other because, like, you know what it means to be looked over, you know what it means to not be seen as fully valid as other people. And so, like, you're like, it's validation, it's a validation of the self.
Just to circle it back around to what's going on and what this movie means for the culture is that this connection between people, particularly Black people, but I think you know uh, people of color have stories like that all the time, like the stories of our culture, right? And for Black people, like even like the little things that were there for Black people, like the hey auntie, you know what I mean? Like that got so many like so much black love was just that little line. It was just there for comedic effect, and people was like making shirts with it and all that because it was just some stuff you would never thought you'd hear in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And so, like, it
It's
was
such
just
an
like,
inside.
what?
It's such an inside joke.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's like,
And you listen to Ryan Coogler. I don't know if y'all ever have watched interviews with Ryan Coogler, but people are always surprised when he opens his mouth. And
it's
somebody,
difficult. Yeah, it's like, damn, that's how he talk.
because he sounds like he sounds
Sound
like
like he from Oakland.
Oaktown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's something that carried over to the screen about all of that authenticity, all that realness. Chadwick's not African, but he dedicated so much time to put it on an accent that was respectable. Like he even said that in that movie. He's like, I got to get this accent right.
Hmm.
I got to do, like all these layers to what he's doing that he brought to the film because of that level of respect for the culture and knowing that what the film was trying to do for the culture. It sucks that film had to carry so much, but it carried it well.
There was
Yeah.
a clip that I saw that was like, it cracked me up, and I could never find it again. But it's like a short video of, like, it's a group of like young, like maybe 20 something black people, and they're looking at the big movie poster, like the one with, how the Marvels have like every single fucking character in the whole movie that they're on the poster. It was like the one for Black
Yeah.
Panther. The guy's like in front of it going, "Oh my god!" Like, this is how white people feel every day. Like,
Oh
and
yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
have you seen that one?
you don't
So
see posters like that. You don't. You
Yeah,
still don't.
with a bunch of black faces on there, like
with a
Right.
bunch of black faces, and they're all beautiful, and it's all like fucking everyone's excited about it, and like, and he's just like tripping out because he's like, this is what it's like to be white, to see yourself reflected as fucking superheroes and the people that other people want to be every single day. And that's the weight that this movie carried, and it fucking did it.
yeah. And I'm glad you said that because I feel like I've heard people like trivialize like this movie and say things like it's not even real, it's fake, it's a superhero movie,
That's
it's
so
a comic
stupid.
book, like it's not even
Mm.
real.
It's just
Yeah,
makes me so
I've
mad.
heard people say that. I've heard people say that, and again, these are people that I don't think maybe fully understand just the psychological nuance of just like black people, you know, growing up in America. Just like how some, not all of us, because all of us have different experiences in America where you can talk to some black people and they don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like they OJ Simpson. Like they don't,
Oh
I don't
god.
know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm good. Like
Mm.
and that's the case. But then there's a lot of us that get it where it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you it is like everything is whitewashed when you're growing up, and maybe as a kid you don't even necessarily, maybe you don't know how to articulate that 100%, but as you get older it starts to become more obvious that everything around you is whitewashed. Especially with this podcast, we go back and talk about old films and stuff that we love. A lot of those films they're not representing us whatsoever. Like we're not in them, for
We didn't
most
have
of
a
them.
voice
Or
in telling the story. And that's the
yeah,
thing, it's like for so long a certain group of people has told all the stories for all the people.
yeah.
And and it's
and
like
the,
now we're getting to tell our stories a little bit more,
and it's good that this movie was, and like to those people, like this movie had to be successful because uh, so many times movie studios say, well, we can't do a movie that's all black because people don't want to see a movie where there's just all black leads. Like that's not what people want to see. And this movie proved them wrong. It says, well, no, like that's, first of all, that's a ridiculous idea anyway. But I mean, if you look at the success of this movie, it's like, yeah, people just want to see good movies. I think like I think you guys think, like, I know you guys are doing crunching these numbers and analytics, and it's like, well, when we put out these black films, they don't do as well. The C movie black films that they do put money behind and they put out. It's like, well, only black people go see those. It's like, yeah, because those are not really good movies. Like they're C movies. If you make a great movie with a black cast, everyone will watch it. Like regardless, there's something to being able to see yourself that maybe you don't think about it because you see yourself everywhere, so it's not something in your mind that registers as being a problem because like what are you talking about, like
That's the thing.
yeah,
Yeah. They don't. It's people don't. It's not. It's not even in your mind because it's just so And anytime it does show up, it's considered to be social social justice and
oh,
like
like in this
it's
movie.
interesting that well anytime like Star Wars,
Star
like,
Wars,
oh,
yeah.
there's a girl
Totally.
Jedi, therefore that's forced, or they use words that imply that if anything is not white, that it's being forced in. And it's like, nah, have you looked around the world? Like
Yeah.
it's literally you literally have to force something to be all white because that's not what the world actually looks like. And so it's so backward, like to think that
It's called
that
gaslighting. I'm serious. I remember like seeing people post like, "What's Wakanda? Ugh, it's not even real." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like fucking is Captain America real? Fucking Asgard's real? Asgard's real? Fuck off! Like get out of here! Like it's
most of it's a
like what are
we
you
know it's
talking
not
about?"
that's the stupid part because Yeah, we know it's not real, but I mean, look how many people have connections, meaningful connections to Star Wars
It's a
or Indiana
story.
Jones or The Matrix or whatever movie you can think of that's a fictional tale that just it's art. And this is art, and art is this is why art is so important. Is because like it reveals things within our society that it makes it more palatable, right? Like it's easier for people to digest the messages in a movie about a guy with superpowers than it is for them to handle people out in the streets holding up signs, and like it's much easier for them to digest some of that stuff. And it's like you kind of got to put the medicine in the food with some of this stuff. Like everybody's not going to respond to just flat out protest. Like that makes some people uncomfortable, and that's the point of it. And they are not open to actually even hearing the message because of the way the message is being delivered. If it's delivered in a way that, yeah, like about people with powers and stuff, fine, okay, this is why art is necessary.
That's the whole point of all of this. Is like we got nothing but narratives. It's the only thing we sure don't have control over reality. We have control over the stories we tell, and that's what's so meaningful, and that's why we're fucking sitting here talking about movies every week, is because movies are stories and stories shape reality.
We sort of organically went into it, so we can kind of wrap up in this space, but of like the cultural impact and like uh, it's interesting to me because I'm of two minds about Black Panther's cultural impact. Like, there's the obvious cultural impact that we've been talking about throughout most of this conversation, and then there's the Afrofuturism, African futurism sort of impact of Afrofuturism's been around for a long time, but Black Panther sort of reinvigorated that in as its popularity, particularly among people of color and Black people. Um, our authors like N.K. Jemisin and folks are getting more attention now than ever. Octavia Butler's being revisited a lot. Like it's doing that within the culture. But I have my biggest issue with the cultural impact of Black Panther is that it seems to be in spite of. Um, that may be a harsh way to say it, but I'm just going to say it that way. It seems to be in spite of Disney and Marvel's plans for it, because I sort of, because after learning about what Chadwick Boseman was going through, I now understand why they didn't announce Black Panther 2 or anything like that. Like it's possible that they're aware of that. But here's what I've taken issue with since that movie came out. Where's the like Black Panther video game? Where's the like Black Panther in Fortnite? They just put Marvel characters in Fortnite. Black Panther's not one of them. Again, they've done that 3 times now. Where's the like Disney Plus Nakia or Okoye series? Like what, you capitalize on literally every character or property, but for some reason you just put out one Black Panther movie and kind of didn't do anything with the biggest solo film you've ever made. It has boggled my mind ever since. Yes, you have lots of action figures that came out late. Like I remember they made a thing about that, how the all the merchandise was like, it came out late and was in low supply because they did not expect the movie to do what it did. Cool. But like the Lego sets were lacking. I remember we had a hard time finding like the Lego sets. There was a few of them. There weren't a lot. Um, and it's like you could make my son Ezra's always talking about like, oh, how cool would a Black Panther video game be? Like, the
Mhm.
more you get shot, the more energy you build up, and then you like. I'm like, yeah, that would be dope. Um, like, you just announced all these TV series, Falcon and the
Mhm.
Winter Soldier, all this stuff. It's like you could have easily spun off one of the 5 to 6 really interesting characters in that movie and done something. And it's just like, it seems weird that they've sort of just let it be this phenomenon and not done more with it.
Maybe they just don't know what to do. Like maybe
But it's
I don't.
so easy.
I know.
It's
You
I
know
so
what?
mean,
easy.
That's not even an excuse anymore for them
I
because it's
know,
like,
I know.
yeah,
I'm not trying to say it as a defense, but I'm saying like, like when we were talking about Princess and the Frog, and we were like, why did they do this? And it's like maybe they were afraid. Like maybe they're in some sort of territory where they are afraid of like being offensive or making the wrong move, and so they're like not doing anything, which is also the wrong move. I don't
Well, see,
know.
they
Like I
actually
don't.
it's funny. It's funny though because they actually did the right thing with Black Panther. They got a black film director like to come in and put the story together. Yeah, they did the right thing with this. They made all the right moves with the exception of like maybe underestimating it. Maybe that's the only
Yeah,
fault that I could even say that they had with this was underestimating it. Everything else I feel like they did it justice, like what we talked about with Princess and the Frog, where I was listening to the episode and at the end we're kind of just like, yeah, just go watch Black Panther, like because
right.
they did it. It lived up to our expectations. Is what we're saying is like this lived up to what we thought it could be, and it did that. And it's like, well, if you or did that, I know you can just get lucky. It's like you guys put the right pieces together to make a good movie. Like you know how to make a good movie. Like you could, and like you said, it's strange because it's Disney. You guys capitalize off of everything. Like that's what
It's
you
so
Maybe
do.
they. I
weird to
mean, maybe
me.
they don't know what to do. Like maybe they did know about the diagnosis and.
To be fair, right now I could see them not knowing what to do
Now,
because
yes.
right now, and if maybe they knew, like you saying, Tawny, beforehand, that might actually make sense if they kind of had some sort of heads up, and they're like, well, this is such a iconic character for people. It was so successful. Now is the time where you could fuck it up. Like before, like you already passed the, you did the right thing and you made a great film. Now is the time where you could mess this up a little bit by going in one direction or the other. So right now I could see them being kind of like not knowing what to do, I
Chris.
guess.
I don't know, man. Like now, like literally now,
Now,
yes.
like, yeah.
Look, here's my thing. If I'm tracking the timeline, you put Black Panther in Infinity War, and you knew. Here's the thing: when Endgame came out, you knew they at that point because Black Panther came out then Infinity War, which didn't give them time to do much aside from set that scene in Wakanda, which was probably always going to be the case. But in Endgame, when the portals open up, who comes out first? You know what I mean? Black Panther is the first one out, and it gets this big pause and this big booming like audience response every single time you go and look at those reactions when he steps out of that portal. Um, they knew what they had at that point. You know what I mean? Like, and they were still using. And what I'm saying is, they use side characters. Like you're making a Hawkeye Disney Plus series. Like, man, you
I want to
better
see.
you better grab you
I
better
want to
grab
see it.
Nakia or somebody. Like,
Yeah, I want to see a. I want to see a Shuri and Okoye.
Shuri. Oh my god! Like Shuri,
I want to see Shuri. I
you
want to
could
see
make such a
Okoye.
great. Can you imagine if they just did a Disney Plus series with Shuri,
Shuri,
Okoye, and
Okoye, and
Nakia?
Nakia.
There's stuff they could do still, but there's stuff they could have done. I get now they probably do have to roll it back and think about what they want to do. And I don't even want to get into what they should do. I
Yeah, I
don't feel
don't
like this is the
either.
space
Like,
for
yeah, it's
that.
not the time.
But
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed that during the time from Black Panther till now, we never heard about anything. Like the video game thing keeps popping in my head because I'm like, that's so easy. Like they put Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor and She-Hulk in Fortnite right now.
She ain't even
You
in
couldn't
no
put Black Panther.
movies. She ain't in none of the movies. She Hulk.
Right. I mean, it's great. It's great that she's there, but like,
It just
like
seems like you would take
I just can't even. I can't even like.
Mm.
It's so easy. It would be so easy to just throw him in because it's not even the movie versions. It's like the cartoonish kind of comic versions. Just throw him in. Like I just feel like they're doing the same thing they were doing leading up to the movie, which is not having enough faith that the fandom will embrace this. And it's like now that the folks will. And now, I mean, now it's way more complex, but um I do feel like the world, the zeitgeist is so powerfully impacted by that movie, by Chadwick, by everything that was done there. Um that maybe that's why I'm so angry and passionate about that, is like I want more, you know, and uh, my kids want more, and
Mhm.
like it's so beautiful to want more of this because we got it, you know.
Yeah, it's like we said
Um,
before. We only get like one of these every,
it's so sad.
and
The
to
Ritz
be
cracker.
fair, like, yeah, and
There's our Ritz. There's our Ritz.
I was, I, and I guess to be fair, like, there is a lot more black filmmakers now, and maybe they just don't get the same spotlight on them as obviously a major Disney movie, because it's Disney. So I guess it's not fair to say we only get one of these a year, but it's just like, I guess maybe these big Hollywood blockbuster ones, and maybe we need to change our thinking. I don't know. Maybe we need to support more of these smaller films that come out that we just decide not to go see.
I'm crossing my fingers for a Chicana superhero.
Yeah, that's what a friend of mine was saying. It was like a Latino brother I know. He was like uh, asking me because he knows I'm a comic book nerd. He's like, any of us gonna show up anytime soon? I was like, I mean, you got no one of Nova. Nova, he's a Latino kid. America Chavez. I don't know, man. I mean, fingers crossed. um, but
I'm
yeah,
waiting.
it's listen. That's what Wakanda's all about. Building our own. That's what I take away from that. Like, what does it look like if we just build our own? You know, and I feel like that part of it, that theme, um, maybe that's what we carry over too. Is we don't continue to expect Disney to spoon feed it to us.
Because yeah,
Um,
that's not their priority.
All people of color should support each other, like in that way. And I'm not black, but I this movie means something very special to me too. And I'm not saying it means the same thing, but like the idea, I remember, like, this is so stupid, or maybe it sounds stupid, but like when when Barack Obama won the first time, like, and I voted, and I had my little Obama t-shirt on, like, it was so dumb. I was just like, that's somebody that looks more like me than anybody else that's been up there before. And like, maybe that's stupid, but like the but the experience of, like, like, this is a person who knows what it's like to be treated like, or to be perceived by people as like not fully American, or you're something other than what it means to be American. Like, that was meaningful to me, even though I'm not exactly in the same category. I think, and I hope that I will always do my best to like support um good art, but also just like especially good art by people who haven't got the platform or haven't had access to the platform before. And God, what a pleasure this movie was, and what a loss um to lose somebody so talented. And I was telling my boys, like, they came home and I was like, did you guys hear what happened? And we kind of talked about it, and I was like, I'm sad. He brought, like, his art, his performance brought so much joy to people. And I know people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, artists or whatever, who cares? They're just a bunch of rich people. And I just, I don't think that's true. I think that's maybe true of some people, but it meant a lot to me as somebody with darker skin, and
yeah,
I'm not trying
no,
to
it's
count
Yeah, too.
myself as anything, but it does, I feel a camaraderie, or like like some level of shared experience. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you, Tony. Like, I don't buy into like the people that say that they don't representation doesn't is not a thing or doesn't mean anything. Who cares? Basically, it's sort of just kind of this trivial thing. It means something because if you turn the tables and you see a lot less white people and a lot of stuff, it's gonna be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, it'll be a
People
problem.
wouldn't lose their shit so
And
badly if it
if
didn't
you
mean
only
anything.
yeah, if you
Exactly.
only saw everything that came out was black, everywhere you turned around was black. Every time you turn on your TV, all the news anchors are black, all the actors are black on the TV. When you go to the store, everybody, all the people you see on the stuff that you buy, cereal boxes, they're all black. If you're white, at some point you're gonna start to be like, can we get
Excuse
some,
me.
can we get some people
Hmm.
that look like, you're gonna say that. Like, I don't care who
Right.
you are. Like, at some point, you're gonna notice that, like, this is not what the world looks like. This is just weird. So I'm
Yeah.
with you. Like she said, like this movie is like it is like powerful. His performance is powerful. Like it inspired me. Like, same thing, the same way, like when Kobe passed, inspired me to be like, man, these are people that I could never aspire to be Kobe, just because that's just a different level of human being that I don't think that most people have what he has.
Yeah.
It's just a rare human that mostly doesn't exist for the most part. And
Right.
but like, just those figures that you see, like it makes you want to do something, like leave your mark behind. And uh to quote like Hamilton, is like, history has its eyes on all of us. Like, what are you doing? And this is a guy that the most fascinating part about him is he did all of this stuff, and he didn't really highlight, he wasn't trying to highlight it. He would just go do stuff. And it wasn't about the glorification of him. He actually just wanted to do things that were meaningful and meant a lot to, the people he was trying to interact with. Even with these films, like, I would see him. He was so humble. I would see him
Yeah.
do interviews, and we would laugh because I'm like, I know he's tired of this Black Panther stuff,
Right.
because everywhere he goes, it's just the Wakanda forever.
Kind of
Everybody,
forever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I could tell that he never, like, I never saw him, at least from what I saw, catch an attitude with anybody, or just like
Right.
wave anybody
No,
off. Like,
God.
I think he understood. I think he
Yeah,
understood
he
what
was.
it meant, to all of us. What he did, what they all did. I think they understood the weight of what they created, and it's like, I get why y'all still talking about this. Like, this means a lot. And he, again, his humbleness, like, it makes you, again, it should inspire you to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's yeah. I mean, that's I think that's a good place for us to close out. Like I think what we ask ourselves what our legacy is going to be, and I know that he told that story about how he prayed to play the Black Panther, um, and that like it was something that he wanted so badly, um, and he got it, and he carried it and carried it through what were definitely were at least the most physically challenging years of his life. Um, it means a lot, and it means even more now that we know, but it meant a lot before we knew. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think there's so much we could say about this movie. There's so much we could say about Chadwick, that we probably didn't say, but we definitely feel it. um, this movie means a lot to me. I can tell it means a lot to y'all too. Um, so, uh, obviously, this is not your usual episode of Your Favorite Movie is Racist. We'll be back to that soon enough, but just really honored and excited to get to talk about um, a movie and a person that had an impact on all of us. If you have, a story, or if this movie or if Chadwick Boseman impacted you in some way, please feel free to join the conversation in the comments. Feel free to share and talk about this. I've been watching like videos and tributes and stuff left and right for the past few days. I plan to revisit a lot of his filmography, watch some of the things I haven't seen. Um, and really just have a moment, have a moment in love and respect for somebody who did a lot of great things. Um, so this is Two Blacks and a Mexican, and we will see you next time.